Recent news and analysis have highlighted growing concerns within the Chinese Communist Party (CCP) about discontent among young people in China. This dissatisfaction, stemming from economic pressures, social constraints, and political frustrations, is increasingly seen as a potential challenge to the CCP's grip on power. The reality of slow economic recovery, high unemployment, and strict social controls has sparked disillusionment and anger among many. One key factor driving youth frustration is the high unemployment rate among recent graduates. China's youth unemployment rate surged to record levels in 2023, with millions of college graduates struggling to find stable employment. The gap between expectations and reality has left many feeling abandoned by the government.
Firstly, thank you for watching, and don't forget to smash that like, subscribe, and notification bell for more global finance uncovered, as we continue to work hard and around the clock to always deliver and improve on our content for you. We would greatly appreciate your additional support by you clicking the like button, notification bell, and subscribe button and joining our channel's growth.
This economic stagnation challenges the narrative of success and prosperity that has been central to the CCP's legitimacy for decades. The once booming economy that lifted millions out of poverty is no longer delivering the same level of opportunities, especially for the younger generation, who are also burdened by rising housing costs. Another area of growing resentment is the strict social controls imposed by the CCP. Many young Chinese citizens have become increasingly frustrated with government censorship, the lack of personal freedoms, and the all-encompassing surveillance state. This frustration is often expressed on social media, despite the government's efforts to suppress dissenting voices. Platforms like Weibo and Douyin, China's version of TikTok, have become outlets for coded expressions of discontent, with young people using humor, satire, and indirect criticism to voice their frustrations while avoiding government censorship. The lying flat tamping movement is a notable example of this generational discontent. Young people are choosing to opt out of the traditional success-driven life path that the CCP promotes, rejecting relentless work and consumerism in favor of minimalism and a slower pace of life. This passive resistance to societal expectations has become a cultural phenomenon, challenging the government's narrative of economic progress and individual responsibility. The movement reflects a deeper frustration with the pressure to succeed in a highly competitive society where economic rewards seem increasingly out of reach.
Additionally, the Run philosophy Rungsu, which emphasizes the desire to emigrate and leave China, is another manifestation of this growing disillusionment. Many young Chinese see little hope for a better future within their own country and are seeking opportunities abroad. This desire to leave reflects a loss of faith in the CCP's ability to provide a stable and prosperous future, particularly as the government continues to tighten its grip on freedom of expression and individual autonomy. Politically, many young Chinese citizens are less nationalistic than previous generations. While the CCP has long fostered a sense of national pride and unity, recent events have dampened enthusiasm for the government. The strict COVID-19 lockdowns, the government's handling of economic challenges, and the lack of meaningful political reform have eroded trust in the CCP. This is particularly evident among young professionals and intellectuals, who are increasingly critical of the party's authoritarian tendencies and lack of transparency. The CCP has responded to these signs of unrest with a combination of propaganda and repression. The government has ramped up its efforts to control the narrative, using state media and social platforms to promote stories of youth success and national pride. At the same time, it has intensified crackdowns on dissent, arresting activists and silencing critical voices. The party is well aware that the youth's discontent could pose a significant threat to its long-term stability if left unchecked. Despite these efforts, the CCP's ability to contain this unrest may be limited. The discontent among young people is driven by deeper structural issues within the Chinese economy and political system, and suppressing dissent will not address the underlying causes. The youth in China are highly connected, both within their own country and to the outside world, and they are increasingly exposed to alternative ideas and ways of living. This exposure makes it harder for the CCP to maintain its narrative of a harmonious and prosperous society. The party's long-standing social contract, which offered economic growth in exchange for political obedience, is being tested by these developments. As opportunities for upward mobility shrink, and as the younger generation feels more and more disconnected from the state, the CCP faces a growing challenge in maintaining its legitimacy. Whether this discontent will evolve into a more organized form of political resistance remains to be seen, but the cracks in the party's control over China's youth are becoming more visible.
Ultimately, the dissatisfaction among young people represents a new and significant challenge to CCP rule. While the party has proven adept at maintaining control through a combination of repression, propaganda, and economic incentives, the changing attitudes of China's youth could force the CCP to reconsider its approach. Whether the party can successfully adapt to these pressures and restore faith among the younger generation is one of the most pressing questions facing China's leadership today. As the discontent among young people grows, the Chinese Communist Party CCP faces not only economic and social challenges, but also the risk of alienating a generation that has grown up under its rule. Many of the young Chinese today have not experienced the political upheavals of the past, but have instead lived in a China that has rapidly modernized and expanded its global influence. However, this modernization has come with increasing political repression and a tightening of social control, creating a generational divide. Younger Chinese citizens, who are more connected to global trends and more accustomed to individual expression, find the CCP's rigid structure stifling. This generational shift is perhaps best seen in the attitudes toward nationalism and patriotism. In the past, the CCP has relied heavily on fostering national pride, particularly through narratives surrounding China's rise as a global power and the Chinese dream of national rejuvenation. While many older citizens continue to support these ideals, younger people are increasingly skeptical. The rise of global digital platforms and exposure to international culture have broadened the perspectives of China's youth, making them more aware of alternative political systems and lifestyles. This awareness has led some to question the CCP's portrayal of China as a unique model that does not need democratic reforms or greater freedoms. The internet has become both a battleground and a pressure valve for young people's dissatisfaction. Online platforms have allowed Chinese youth to voice their frustrations, but they have also become spaces where the government cracks down on dissent. The CCP's strict control over the internet means that open criticism is swiftly censored, but the resilience of young Chinese netizens is evident in their ability to develop coded language, memes, and indirect criticism. This form of digital resistance, while not overtly political, signals a broader rejection of the CCP's control over public discourse. In addition to economic and political frustrations, there are cultural shifts that are threatening the CCP's narrative of social harmony. For example, issues like gender equality and LGBTQ+ rights are gaining more traction among younger Chinese, who are increasingly influenced by global social justice movements. However, these issues remain taboo within the party's framework, which upholds traditional family values and social norms. The disconnect between the party's conservative stance and the progressive views of many young people has created a cultural divide, further straining the relationship between the CCP and the younger generation. The pressures of living in a hyper-competitive society are another source of discontent. Many young Chinese feel overwhelmed by the demands placed on them to succeed in an economy that is slowing down. The intense focus on academic achievement, followed by the struggle to secure stable, well-paying jobs, has led to a phenomenon known as involution neiwan, where individuals feel stuck in an endless cycle of competition without meaningful progress. This sense of futility has fueled movements like Lying Flat, where young people choose to disengage from the competitive rat race altogether. The rise of such movements suggests a growing desire among the youth for an alternative way of life that does not align with the CCP's emphasis on hard work and economic success. The economic situation in China, particularly in the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic, has worsened these frustrations. China's slowing economy, compounded by trade tensions with the United States and other global factors, has limited the job prospects for many young people. The unemployment rate among youth has reached alarming levels, with some estimates suggesting that over 20% of young people are unemployed. This high unemployment rate undermines the CCP's promises of prosperity and has led to growing cynicism among young graduates, many of whom feel that the government is not doing enough to address their needs. Despite the growing discontent, overt political opposition remains risky in China. The CCP's extensive surveillance apparatus, combined with harsh penalties for dissent, means that many young people are reluctant to engage in direct political activism. However, this does not mean that the youth are passive. Instead, they are finding more subtle ways to resist the party's influence, whether through online activism, cultural expression, or the simple act of withdrawing from the pressures of society. This quiet resistance may not immediately threaten the CCP's hold on power, but it signals a growing undercurrent of dissatisfaction that could become more pronounced over time. The CCP is aware of the challenges it faces with the younger generation and has responded by trying to co-opt youth culture. The government has launched campaigns promoting positive energy on social media, encouraging young people to share stories of national pride and personal success. State media frequently highlights young entrepreneurs and workers who embody the spirit of the Chinese dream. However, these efforts have had limited success in reaching a generation that is increasingly skeptical of state propaganda. Many young people see through these attempts and view them as disconnected from the realities they face in their daily lives. Another strategy the CCP has employed is the suppression of alternative political thought through education. The Chinese education system places a heavy emphasis on ideological education, with schools and universities promoting the party's narrative of history and governance. However, this top-down approach is meeting resistance from students who are exposed to global ideas through the internet and international education. While the CCP has tightened controls on foreign influences and education, young people remain curious and critical, challenging the party's efforts to shape their worldview. In the long term, the relationship between the CCP and China's youth may prove to be a defining issue for the future of the party. As economic pressures mount and the gap between the government's promises and young people's realities widens, the CCP may be forced to either adapt or risk further alienation of a crucial demographic. While the party has survived numerous challenges throughout its history, the growing disillusionment among young people presents a unique challenge. This generation, more connected and informed than any before it, may ultimately push for changes that could reshape the Chinese political landscape. Whether through gradual reforms or more dramatic shifts, the future of CCP rule may depend on how well it can address the concerns of its youth.
Thank you for watching, and don't forget to smash that subscribe, like, and notification bell for more global finance uncovered.